What's up, everybody? It's Brandon here with Two Coats Deep. Go ahead and grab your 5-1s, open up your paint cans, and let's go ahead and get rolling. Today, we've got a super awesome guest. His name is Jason Tracey with Roar Consulting. Jason, well, it's an honor to have you on.
Man, thanks. I feel right at home.
Yeah, it's almost like you are at home. This is actually Jason's studio. It's called Loudmouth Studio, which we use to record the podcast in. Thank you for always giving us the space to do this. And for anybody who doesn't know you, what do you do?
Man, I ignite the difference maker in people that know that there's more to life. They're out there. They know that there's a higher purpose. They know that there's impact to make, and there's something holding them back. And what I find is the common thread is it's the limiting beliefs. It's the fear of what if. I had a session yesterday with a client that she has all the pieces. Like, she was telling me yesterday that she used to throw these events, and she's like, she'd get people from all over the country to come, and they paid this money and they do these overnight events with her. And I was like, how'd you do it? She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, what'd you do? What is it about you? Like, drilling down, trying to understand her, right? Throughout the session, what I realized is the biggest thing holding her back is the fear of not how is this going to work, but what if it works? What if it works and I get out there and I become really successful, and now I'm overwhelmed because I can only do so much work at a time? What do I do?
And then you broke that down, and what was the breakthrough for her?
The breakthrough, she didn't realize it. She thought that her biggest, if you would have asked her yesterday, what's the biggest thing preventing me from being world famous? Is that how there's no way to do it. How am I going to do it? Like, there's no way possible. Where do I even start? Who's going to listen to me? That kind of thing. But as we go through the session, it's like, look at your social media. Like, every time you put something out, she had a 175,000 view clip the other day
Holy
that she put
smokes.
out. And it's like, okay, now start talking to people inspirationally. Because her thing, she does alterations, and she does like custom clothing and stuff like that. But her whole vehicle and her whole platform is that she helps women not to settle, not to play small, not to apologize for being in a room. She helps them go get more opportunities by embracing that confidence, by wearing clothes that fit, by understanding that you don't have to play small and wear clothes that make you blend so that nobody notices you. Like, screw that. Get out of your box. Make a difference. Stand out. Don't apologize for being you. Wear the clothes that make you stand out in a room. And that's how I met her when I walked into a Howell Chamber event a year ago, a little over a year and a half ago. And it was a crowded room at the Single Barrel Social in Brighton. And there was Beth Smith across the room. And I was like, who is that? I need to talk to her. She's one of my people. And it's just the way that she carried herself, the way that she dressed. I knew it.
Got it. So you bring out the best in people. So you would be considered like a consultant, a coach, something of that nature, if you had to put a frame around it.
Yeah, so a coach. I'm more of a coach than I've done coaching and consulting, and there's a difference, in a lot of like coaching is realizing that you've got all the magic right here. Like, you're a difference maker, and I'm saying that for real. Like, you're a difference maker, right? And so I see that in you. I see the magic. I see the impact you can make in the world. I see that gap, like when I'm working with my clients, right? And so, what can we do to close that gap? And I say this all the time: hell is meeting the person that you could have been.
Hell is meeting the person you could have been. Is that
Hell
what you
is meeting
said?
the person that you could have been. Like, you get
Mm.
done, your life is over. You're up at the pearly gates, and they're like, this guy comes down. It's Brandon, but
And
it's
he,
not you. You don't even recognize him. You're
because
like, this
did
guy.
all this stuff.
He did all this stuff. He made all this impact. He like helped people. He, lived the life of his dreams. He became this bigger thing than you could have ever even imagined. Only because the fear didn't stop him. The limiting beliefs didn't stop him. Right? He was on God's mission. He was on God's purpose. Like, and he went and did those things. Nothing held him back. What's that gap from here to where you're at now?
So do you ever have clients where they're following your path that you've helped them define? When they get off the path, how, like, do you help them get back on?
Yeah, and and that's the thing is like sometimes we're meant to struggle. Like the path is not always linear. Here's a good example. I have a client, and the first time I met Sparkle, her first off, her name is Sparkle, right? I'm like, Sparkle's going to be famous. Like, and it's not just because of her name. I met her and I had a conversation with her, and I'm like, wow, this lady is impactful. Like, she's going to be a household name. Everybody's going to know her. She's going to be like Oprah, right? Like, she's got this like magnetism about her. And so, long story short, we worked together. It's been 5 years now. And it's really awesome because just the other day was her 7th year of sobriety. And I've been with her through 5 years of that 7 years. So it's really cool to kind of see that. But she is nationally known. She's a nationally known speaker now. She literally school districts around the country are giving her 6-figure contracts to build curriculum, to build confidence and build foundations of confidence in young kids.
So we might have a new car underneath our seats right now, kind of like Oprah.
Like Oprah, yeah, like she's, and that's it's really cool to see it. Like, one day she called me. It was probably about a year ago now, and she called me up and she was like, "Jason, I'm at this convention, like this industry convention," and I walked in and she was like, "Somebody put a poster, like a life-size poster of me on the wall," and I'm like, "Whoa!" And I'm like, she's like, "I'm not speaking here. I'm not." She was like, "Somebody just said I'm a face of this industry," and she's like, "As I'm walking down the hall, I walked into the doors, and I can't move. People are coming up to me and they want to know how they can work with me, and they want to know like what's next." And so she's like in the bathroom hiding and talking to me on the phone. She's like, "What do I do?" She's like, "Should I book meetings with them? Should I book consultations with all of them?" I'm like, "How many people are approaching you?" She's like, 200. I'm like, "Do you have time to do 200 consultations?" She's like, "No." It's like, "So what are you going to do?" She's like, "It's time to launch the group coaching." I'm like, boom. So where do we go now? And so, so that was the next step. And she built out this whole platform, Coach's Corner, for her coaches and in her industry. And so when we started, she was literally working for a nonprofit organization. She was making $16 an hour. And she didn't see that organization pinned all of their hopes and dreams on her. Like, she was the person that was going to build their organization up. She was building programs for them that was industry leading programs. It was making them special. The problem is she thought that she needed them more than they needed her. I saw very clearly they needed her far more than she needed them. She needed them at the beginning to develop her confidence and really understand what she had. But once she got to that point, she was going to make far more impact on her own. And it took, and this is where, to answer your question, the kind of long way about it, because all stories, all stories are kind of long a little bit, is that it came time to quit. It came time she had did the things to build her business to where she could replace her income and go and build her business full time. And we got to this point where she only had so much time, and she was like, was back against the wall. And I'm like, "You know what time it is, right?" She was like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's time to go quit. It's time to move on. It's time to build your business." And she was like, "Well, I don't know if I could do that." And you know what? They like, I would put them in a bad situation if I walked away. And so we spent the whole entire session, her planning how she was going to go in and pitch to them that she would consult them. She'd do a consulting agreement. Instead of being their employee, she would build it out and make them part of her business, right? So she walks into the building and she goes up to the boss and she's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you guys." And they're like, "Great, we need to talk to you too. Let's do it right now." And she was like, "Great." She was like, so she calls me up. She's like, "You won't believe what happened." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "I told them I need to talk to him. They said I need to talk to you too." And they pulled me in the room and we sat down and they slid a piece of paper across the desk and they said, "Yeah, we need to talk to you. You've been putting so much time into building your own business that and not putting your attention to where you're making your actual money. And so we need to write you up." I was like, "What'd you do?" She's like, "I quit." Like, so let's go.
You saw that silver writing on the wall before she even did.
Yeah.
And you were able to prepare her for that meeting. She already went in ready for that. And
she was ready for it. She was prepared. She wasn't like, "Oh my God, is this going to be a bad decision?" She had, the reason why she had gotten to the point where she was like, "I can't quit," is because she realized that they needed her and she felt bad for leaving. And so once they said, "Here's your write-up," it's like they blessed and released her. And all of a sudden her hang up was gone and she was able to go and start her own business. Now, once she starts her own business, as you know, as an entrepreneur, it's not just like, "Woo, we made it." Like there's all the success, right? So she had these clients and stuff like that, but she just couldn't get out of her way of thinking that she needed other things. Like, for example, she was a sobriety coach, a recovery coach, and she was working with a lot of people that just didn't have money to pay her to coach them. And so she thought that she needed to be able to take Medicaid and get grant funding. And and to do that, she thought that she needed to attach her name to other organizations. And every time she did it, and as a coach, I'm like, what, like trying to help her see that she doesn't need other people, that every single person that comes into her life is like Yahtzee. We got Sparkle. Like, oh, like they're like Yahtzee. We're going to make her part of our organization because she's going to bring in everything to us. Right. It took back against the wall, not listening to your coach and just going on and being like playing the safe way of what she thought was the safe way. She wasn't listening to our conversations and she was just doing the things, right? And it was a couple of weeks and she did this thing and she thought she was going to get this big payoff and she got $297 to split with her and her partner. And she had no money. She had $297 and she had stopped seeing me. Like she'd stopped booking sessions with me because like I was like, you're like, you've got to move, right? Like I was making her uncomfortable. And so then she calls me up and she was like, hey, you were right. And she was like, she told me this whole story. We got this $297 to split. And so we talked, we got through this conversation and kind of God's path. Once she realized what she needed to do, it was like one thing led to another. And it just has been no looking back since. She doesn't even coach people anymore from a one-on-one recovery standpoint. She actually empowers the empowerers, and she coaches, trains, certifies, and mentors recovery and sobriety coaches across the country. And since that whole thing happened, she has coached, trained, certified, and mentored over 900 recovery coaches across the country.
Wow. And that impact 900 coaches, how many people does each coach impact a year? Like
that's exactly it.
That transition helped her more towards her like life goal.
Yeah. And so that's what lights me up is I get to empower the empowerers. I'm that person that the empowerers come to, the people that are making a difference in the world when they need their butt kicked a little bit, when they need to see that like who the fuck they are. Like, so we all need to remember who the fuck we are sometimes.
Amen. Amen. And you do something that's pretty different to the area. I don't see it a lot. I see it in our painting space from a couple different coaches as well, but you do a boot camp, a difference maker boot camp.
Yeah.
And that's where people actually come together here in Brighton or Howell.
Brighton, Howell. Yeah. It's both locations. Yep.
So Southeast Michigan people can come out and do a difference maker boot camp with you. I'm actually about to do that this upcoming one.
I'm excited.
So that's really exciting. What made you want to do a group setting like that?
Good question. Because again, as entrepreneurs, it's not linear. Like I made it, right? And so I had my best year from an income standpoint. And you asked, you're a coach or a consultant. I was doing more consulting at this standpoint. I was working with bigger small businesses that had teams. Like for example, I had a client that had 150 employees. They were a commercial janitorial company. And what I would do is I was a fractional sales consultant, sales leader. So I would come into their company, I'd sit on their leadership team and develop their sales team, help them build out their company, help them build out their processes and systems for their business development, train their people. And then with the long-term goal of when I leave, they've got a whole structure, system, process, and they've got their heir apparent of who's going to be their business development leader. So when I'm done, I'm plugging somebody into place and they're going. That was awesome. Like I said, it was really good income, good money. You're working with bigger sized businesses that have the income and they know they just need to scale. And so it was really good. The problem is I'd have 5 clients that I'm working with and that was all of my time. And you're like, why don't you just scale and add some pieces? It's because I didn't love it. I couldn't see like, oh, I want to scale this. I thought about scaling it to some degree because I had a lot of clients I was working with that were consultants and did things like I did. Like I had sales consultants that I was coaching from a one-on-one standpoint. And so I thought, and I talked to a couple of them like, hey, maybe I can contract you and bring you in And just as it got closer, I'm like, I don't really feel this. I don't really feel like this is my next step. What really lights me up is this is working with those difference maker entrepreneurs. I had a couple of consulting clients that I absolutely loved. I, they, the commercial janitorial company, phenomenal. Like the people, phenomenal. The results that we got, phenomenal. They had a 3-year goal to open up a new branch, and we achieved that within 12 months. And that branch became the largest branch in their company history. Today, we landed in that 12-month period, we landed their 2 largest clients in their company history. They were over 40-year company. In those 2 deals that were $1 million in revenue for the year.
Wow.
And those 2 deals those were small deals by the time they built their branch out. Those 2 deals led to bigger opportunities, even that. And I had Danny, my guy I worked with on my podcast a year ago, and we sat and talked about how like that became the biggest branch in the whole entire company, and it's just changed their face of their company. Now, to go back to it, I'm sitting there and I'm like, the people that light me up are again, they started their business. Like they're going out and doing the thing. A lot of coaches and consultants, a lot of home service companies, stuff like that. That they start their business and business development wasn't the thing they were thinking about. Leadership wasn't the thing they were thinking about. I'm a great painter. Now, how do I go and sell that? Most importantly, as far as like a sale and a process, how do I teach my guys and my team to sell that? How do I embrace my story, and all that stuff? I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, but it was like, there's only so much one-on-one coaching you can do. 1, 2, with the type of clients that I like working with that are like really that small business, it's like I can get more people in at a smaller rate, and do a group and make it really impactful. And then the other thing that I recognized, but I didn't realize was so freaking powerful, was the power of having difference-making entrepreneurs in a room and then going beyond the surface level. Because most of us all the time, every day, are operating at the surface level, right?
And what do you mean by that?
When you ask somebody how they're doing, what do they say?
You've already hit me with this before. All right or good.
All right. Yeah. My biggest pet peeve is like not too bad, and that's the most common thing. But you're getting surface level. How's your day going? Not too bad. Okay, good. In boot camp, that's not acceptable. Like what's good? Like we're going beyond the surface. And I have people in my one-on-one sessions, people in boot camp that cry. And then they'll apologize and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm crying. And it's like, we haven't done anything until you cried. We haven't. And that's, I guess, the weight of having, of my coaching in the boot camp is we haven't done anything until it's down so core into your emotions that it's like, you're shedding tears. You're shedding tears because for the first time you have this clarity. You understand how your story is all connected. You understand the impact and the purpose you're supposed to make. Or you're really struggling with this thing. It's so emotional, and we got to get through it. We got to go through the layers. The problem is whether is you're going through this as an entrepreneur, where do you go to practice?
Just in the streets, right?
Just in the streets. You're practicing in real life. And believe me, I ride a motorcycle, right? I rode a Harley, and I was like, one of the most dangerous things is you're practicing in the street. Like your practice is real time on the road, life or death, right? Like there's nowhere to really practice like other than real time. That's the same thing that we're doing as entrepreneurs. And so what I've provided with Difference Maker Bootcamp is a platform where entrepreneurs can come in and they get that opportunity to dive deep with other entrepreneurs, to practice. We had a guy, and he's an artist, and he paints murals, and he does these classes, and he helps people bring the right art into their homes. He does these consultations, right? And he did this mural project, or this guy called him up that had a lot of money and, was like, I want to do this mural in my home theater. And so he quoted him $1,300 to do this mural in this home theater. And then he came to boot camp and he was like, man, this project has gotten way bigger than the $1,300 I quoted him. And I'm actually losing money, and I need to requote him to $5,000 in order to even make money. Right. And he's like, he's like, you could tell he's like throwing up in his mouth. Like they got to go out and have a conversation with this guy that, hey, I've way undershot. And in order to really get this project done, we need to move it to this price point. And so it's like, all right. And somebody else in the room was like, all right, you're this guy. Let's have this conversation. And it sounds crazy to role play, and it's is it going to be as is it going to be is it going to make any impact? This guy is literally like, all right, hey, I rescoped this and I realized, and he literally made this like, I could watch him like swallowing the vomit down in his throat, and he's like, I think maybe that we could probably like if I could do this for 5,000, and it was like, whoa, hold on. Does anybody move? What's your natural reaction? Like, if you're listening to this and you're the customer, what are you going to say to them? Like, get out of here. Like, get out of here with your nervousness. Like, no, why would I do that? Like, you don't even see the value of $5,000. You're sitting here trembling in your boots trying to pitch it to me, right? All right, do it again. Like, we give him some help. We give him some insight. He does it again. By the fourth time, he pitched $6,500 with no problem. So he went from throwing up in his mouth about 5,000, pitched 6,500. The next day, he messages me, I got a signed agreement for $6,500.
How beautiful.
It's beautiful.
How many people go from the boot camp and then go into your ecosystem of the one-on-one coaching?
So I get about 20% that go into the one-on-one coaching. And it's been awesome from the standpoint of like, from the coaching, it's been a nice natural progression, because not everybody is my one-on-one person. I learned that a long time ago. I talked about Beth here a minute ago, and I knew walking into a room that Beth was my person. I had an idea, and then as I got to work with her through a group setting, she's the person that's like taking the challenges, doing the things, coming back with like, you really moved me here. This is what I did. Boom. Like, you're a one-on-one coaching client, because if we can do this in group, what can we do one-on-one?
I love that. In our painter space, which a lot of my listeners are painters, we have a lot of, a lot of people call them gurus, right?
Yeah.
So they kind of had mild success, and then they go and try to teach everybody about their mild success. How do you prove to people that you're not one of those gurus, that you are a guru?
That's a good question, because and you talk about like limiting beliefs and stuff like that. That was my biggest thing to overcome coming into this and starting my business. Is like, I built in a little bit of my background is, before I started my business, I was in sales. I was a sales director for a company that, just a short story, when I started, I was there for 9 years. When I started, they were millions of dollars in debt, and they were about to file bankruptcy, and they threw up a Hail Mary and brought me in from the outside. And I built up this organization, developed people, and we became one of the top companies within our industry. We won Franchisee of the Year across the country. We grew across the state of Michigan, and we were really the epitome of what a franchise or a company in that industry looks like. How I got the idea to consult and coach people would come to us and want to pick my brain. People would want to take me to lunch. People would pay me to come and check out their spots. And I'm like, oh, I love this. Like, man, let's go make some impact. Right. And so all my people, I take my people to motivational speakers every other month. We do all this stuff. I wanted to grow and develop people. That's what I've always been about. And every time we'd go to these speakers, my people would be like, that should be you on the stage. Jason, man, you're bigger than where you're at. Like, you need to be there. Like, you should be out telling everybody, you should be out on these stages. You should be out making the videos. You should be doing these things. I'm like, yeah. I knew I wanted to do that, but it was like, but it's that limiting belief of, who's going to listen to me? I'm just this guy that did this thing. Like, I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not, there's so many gurus out there. There's Gary V's and all these different people. And like, who am I? And like, then I got to go compete with that. And then like, oh, here's the new guru, because anybody can just go start a consulting business, just like anybody can go start a painting business. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how do you prove yourself? And I actually just put a clip out the other day that Chad Kremre, who is a difference-making real estate agent here in the area, a super awesome guy. I know I connected you with him. And he literally said in the video, he was like, when I first met you, he was like, there's a lot of gurus out there. And he was like, I was skeptical, but he was one of the guys that, and he's not afraid to say this, that he shed tears on the last day, on the 12th week, that, and he's signed up for what's spun out of this now is difference maker masterminds. And so after you go through the boot camp, there's people that want to continue this, because it's the accountability, after every session, after every boot camp, at the end, each person sets commitments of what they're going to do that's going to move their business forward. What did you take out of this, and what needs to be done in this next week that's going to help you become that person at the end of your life, right? What can we do to move that needle in this next week? And at the very beginning of the session, the next week, we break it down. What'd you do? What worked? What didn't work? What'd you learn about yourself? And as you're going through that, it's powerful. One, you know, many people come to me and say, I wouldn't have even done this if it wouldn't have been, I knew I had to go and report on it today. And now you got to report to the whole entire group that you didn't do anything.
So the last day, a lot of people are scrambling, like, all right, I got to get these done.
Well, it's every week. It's 12 weeks. And so every week they do this.
Yeah, but that day of the next meeting, some of those people are like, oh, I haven't hit my action items yet. Let me go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The day before. Yeah. They're doing it. They're doing it. But it's awesome because you see that growth in what's really cool is when the other people point out like, wow, Megan, I've seen your confidence grow through the roof. Like, you know, how do you measure that? Like when you see somebody walking through and they're like standing taller, they're talking clearer, they're not stumbling on themselves, right? But then you've got people that are scaling their business and they've got bigger businesses, they've got teams. And it's like, how do I even have this conversation? How do I train my people? Like, you know, hey, I've got this guy and he could be really talented on my team, but man, he does this and this, and I just don't understand why. And he shows up late. What's wrong with him? Did you have that conversation? No. Why? Well, because you're probably afraid of what the response is going to be, right? Like either he's going to tell you to quit, he quits, he doesn't like this job, or you have all this fear around what's going to go in that conversation, and so you avoid the conversation, and instead animosity just builds up until one day you just go off and you scream at the guy and throw a paint bucket at him, you know, like, right? What if you had that conversation right out of the gates, and you're like, Brandon, man, you're so talented. Like what do you want to do with your life? You could be, I see so much potential in you, but let me ask you, why do you show up late every day? What's going on in your life?
Man, I swear it was traffic, my car. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, and that's true. But like when you come to somebody with like from a leadership standpoint, you have these conversations, it's just different versus not having a conversation, and now it builds up and then you scream at it. Or you just scream at him and you're the parent and you're like, because I said so.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, maybe it's you, maybe you've had this before, but you build up these fake scenarios in your head.
Yeah.
For example, like a builder not paying you and you're like thinking about, all right, how do I get this payment? What do I do? Well, we know the exact action items but just like you said, sometimes that role play helps. I mean, I know with sales, role playing sales helps a ton. So I could imagine role playing different, scenarios would help as well. So when you get a client that's scared to do stuff, them setting that within that week, you notice that they tend to do it more often, or
yeah, here's one. We had a guy that he started his business and his wife didn't necessarily believe in him that his business was going to be successful. And so while he's at home trying to get his business off the ground, she's messaging him about doing the laundry and making sure the kids are picked up and making sure that all the household chores are being done every single day. And so instead of him growing his business, he's become a housemaid, the housemaker. Now, what do you think that's done to his confidence as a man?
it changed him from the difference maker to the housemaker.
To the housemaker, but man, the guy's like literally like nervous to talk. He's stumbling over himself, right? I think maybe like every week he's coming with like this new program that he can't pull off because he doesn't have the confidence to say it to his customer. Because like as a man, his man card's been pulled away. Like his wife doesn't believe in him. He can't even build his business because he's got to make sure to get the household chores done. And if he doesn't, he's afraid he's going to get yelled at. Right. And so through boot camp, this came out that this was his problem. And it was like, boom, I knew there was something. There's something there that's causing all of this. And so we literally had him role play. Jen Ling with his role play person. You know how nice Jen is, right? Like Jen is so nice. And he's like sweating having this conversation with her. And she's like, oh, I understand. And he's like, you do?
That reminds me of one of my earlier relationships that I had. Everything was a question mark. It was never an explanation point. I think is a good way that I frame it in my head. It was always, yeah. It's not like, yes, I'm ready to go, Jason. Like, let's take this to the next level. It's like, yeah, I'm ready to go.
So he starts off with like, honey, I think that, what I need to build my business is I need for you to help me, like, let me do my thing to build, like in order for me to be successful, I've got to be able to work my thing. And that means that I'm working my business these hours to these hours. And anything else that comes in between, like that's business time. That's just like if I wasn't here, if I was at a job. And to speak that more confidently, as soon as he had that conversation, and I wasn't there to, to see what actually happened in that conversation, but you could see his confidence grow to by the end, he seemed like a different person.
Amen. I think something that a lot of viewers would get some knowledge and power from is even me personally. I have shiny object syndrome. I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of business owners do. With your clients, what do you do to help them stay focused and keep the blinders on, but still get good new ideas? That because I'll put the blinders up and I feel like I do miss some things. Maybe that's the shiny object syndrome still trying to shine out. But when I have those blinders up, I am worried about missing stuff. So how do you keep it in the middle ground where you're not missing new things, but you're staying focused and keep going forward? Because there's a million new AI tools out there. There's a million new things that you could go do. What do you
Oh
tell
my
your
God, there's
clients?
so much noise out there, right? There's so many things, and especially if you then factor in the majority of us entrepreneurs are ADD or on undiagnosed ADD, which is what is the driver that makes us successful, right? In a lot of cases, because we can handle a lot of different things at one time. But then you say, "Oh, here's a new marketing thing," and all of a sudden you're working on things. And this is honestly the biggest thing that I saw, and when I started my business, when I started working with clients one on one, the biggest thing that held people back was that there was too much. There's too much. There's people that I was meeting that I thought, well, we're going to work well together because they can read all the books that I'm reading. They're doing all the motivational speaking. We can talk and have a long conversation about all the things, and I could feel like, oh, this person gets it. And then as we're sitting one on one, they don't go do the things. And that's the most important thing, is to go do the things. And I know this is not answering your question, but it's go do the things. The thing that was holding them back was they would read a book here and it would tell them to do these things. So they'd be all hot and we're going to go do this. And then they'd read a book that would conflict with this book. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, definitely.
There's sometimes where you can read too much reading can just get in your way.
Yeah, it's too much input into my brain and it's too many different things to act on. That's exactly what I was meaning. I know what makes my painting business money,
Yeah.
painting.
Yeah. Painting. Right?
So how do I streamline everything about that?
Yep.
And then how do I know when it's the time to flip the page to go to the next book, if that makes any sense? Or I mean metaphorically or even physically. How do you know when you've achieved what the book sets you out to do?
Well, so a big one is right out of the gates, really sitting down and understanding, what do you want life to look like in the next 10 years? And that can be really, really hard because we grossly misrepresent what we can do in a year. Like, we think we can achieve far more in a year than what we can. And we think that in 10 years is like, we can't achieve very much. Right. So I've used this thing, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast.
Yes.
So like Mr. Beast, like 10 years ago, I saw this video a few months ago. 10 years ago, he was, 17 years old. He was living in his parents' house. He was a senior in high school, and he was in his bedroom doing his homework. And he made this video about like, this is me, and he pre-scheduled it to come out in 10 years. And so it was, this is me now. Hopefully, when I'm talking to you now, in 10 years in the future, all these things will happen. And he's like, oh my God, I hope I have 1 million subscribers. Oh my God, dude, if I don't have 1 million subscribers, my life isn't worth anything. And that's, like a high
Doesn't
school
he have
kid.
like
Like,
a billion?
yeah. He has more YouTube subscribers than anybody else in the world. Like, and he's got several pages with millions and millions of people that are subscribing to him. Why I use that example is because 10 years ago, he thought that 1 million subscribers was almost impossible. In reality, he's got one page that has like 350 million subscribers. One page. You know what I mean? So like, we grossly miscalculate what we can accomplish in 10 years. And so it's really sitting down right out of our first session and getting a good understanding of who are you as a person and what do you want to happen in the next 10 years? What do you want life to look like? Because then that's your North Star. That's your compass, right? Sparkle, this is a really good example. Sparkle came to me probably about a year and a half ago on a phone call because she lives in Colorado. And she was like, I've really outgrown the sobriety and recovery piece. She was like, I am now operating on these different levels and I feel like there's a bigger impact for me to make. I'm like, awesome. What does that look like? And she starts telling me, I think I might start teaching like AA classes, or, like she starts brainstorming on all these things that are actually beneath her. And I don't want to say, no offense to anybody doing AA classes or anything like that, but there are things that she was talking about doing that were like, you're already past that. Like, why are you talking about going below? So I sat and I listened to her, and I, let her talk her limiting beliefs out, like keeping herself small. And I was like, how does that feel? If you wake up tomorrow and you're teaching AA classes, how does that feel? She's like, disgusting. I'm like, then that's your answer. Like, because to me, as you're saying it, I want to go throw up right now. Like, if you went and did that, I'd be like, it would be against my, against me, my, like against my belief in you,
So
like,
how did you know? So that was like 6 years from when you guys made the 10-year plan, right?
yeah.
So how did you know, like, hey, yeah, it's okay for you to take the blinder off to look over here?
So I knew that there were the things that she really needed to go do was to finish her book. She needed to build out her group coaching. She needed to focus on her keynote speaking. And so when you're coming to me about elevating, and I've outgrown kind of this, I need to elevate. I have in my mind where you said you wanted to go, what you said you wanted to do, that the projects that you're working on, that when you finish your book, what's going to happen? It's more income stream and stuff like that. But there's courses, there's all kinds of things that come along with when you write your book. And so, hey, great, all this stuff. How does that feel? Horrible. Awesome. What about that book? Where you at on the book? She's like, oh my God, here I am sitting and trying to reinvent all these things. And I forgot all about the things that I'm like have in my face, And she went and did those things.
And how many things do you give your clients to like think about? Like for me, for example, I've got this podcast, I got the painting company, I got the marketing company. It's pretty split. I don't mean to make this about myself,
No,
but
yeah.
it is my podcast.
It is your podcast. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I've noticed these three things. It's a lot to channel. So we've just kind of been dumbing it down a little bit more. I thoroughly enjoy these podcasts. I enjoy bringing, some sort of value and some entertainment and some knowledge to the people in my space, because it's stuff that I always wish that I had. And I love putting on my headphones while painting and listening to stuff. However, how do you know when they're too distracted? Like for me, for example, how would you tell that?
Well, for me, I know that you've been enlightened by this whole podcasting thing, in making impact, in helping others live the life of their dreams. I see a lot of that in you, and I see where, I see your purpose, and so, and we've talked about this. We've had a lot of conversation. We didn't sit down and set a 10-year goal, but I know that there's even more impact for you, and it's amazing also for everybody that doesn't know how inspired by design, how that can be really used in so many different ways. It's super cool how that can all come to fruition. But if you then came and told me that, hey, now I'm thinking about opening up a HVAC
shop?
company or a donut shop, though you do like donuts, so maybe.
I love donuts, especially Marv's down the road. Marv's Meats. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
great
Marv's
bakery.
is great. I've never had their donut. Or these Marv's? Okay.
That's what I'd be
Marv's is awesome.
bringing up in here.
That's
So yeah, shiny object syndrome. Definitely feel like I have it. I just want to provide everybody as much as possible. But the thing that I find with that is I'm trying to give everyone else all this great stuff. I want them to live the life that they want. Where do I put myself when I'm doing all that? Because I always put everyone else above me.
Yep.
And I know that. I know that wholeheartedly. But I was having a conversation the other day where it was, yeah, I do unintentionally put everybody else above. But at the same time, a lot of the times I'm thinking like, okay, well, how can I do this for them? But it's still like I'm trying to do it for them, but it's still me. So now that I've started realizing, hey, I am wanting to help everyone else because it helps me. What do I dive into, or what does anybody listening that has a similar thought pattern, like what do they dive into?
If they want to help people,
Yeah.
I mean, what you've already done. This is like episode 4. what you've already done as far as like the guests and you know, you thanked me for the studio, and it's awesome. I appreciate you, brother, for coming in here, thinking of me for using the studio. And then I get to be here and have all these, you know, listen to all these inspiring conversations. I'll say that last conversation, the last episode was probably the hardest episode that I've sat back and like had to just be like the person hitting the buttons over here, because there's like there's so many things I want to jump in and be like, yeah, like there's just, you know, but there's so much great stuff out of there, right? You go out and you make that content, you put it out in the world, and that alone, you know, like if you're sitting and listening to this, like you're getting extreme amount of value, especially as you're talking to other guys that have built something that your listeners want to build,
Amen.
right?
I've been battling this thing. We even talked about it at the end of that show. It's like what I was talking about with, you know, how did you know that you could go be this guru?
Yeah,
Granted, I don't know if you like that term,
I hate
coach,
the term.
whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It is what it is, but yeah.
it's always like you get to this level and you're like, well, can I reach back and teach one, bring one up? I've got this mantra. I say, reach one, teach one, right? However, sometimes I'm like, have I reached it? Because I'm always raising that bar.
Yeah.
So did I really reach it? Because I'm like, oh well, I'm trying to get to this next goal. Like, can I really turn back and pull someone up? I don't know quite exactly where I'm going with that. It's just more like, again, how do you maintain focus on your main goal but still do, I call them side quests, like this?
Here's a really good example. Like so I start a podcast because I needed to create content to get myself out there. The hardest thing to do as an entrepreneur, as you're building your business, is to convince the people around you that you're a human, right? Like they see you as somebody that's going to go sell that to them, or, you know, people won't ask you about your business because they don't want you to sell to them, that kind of thing. Like they see you as an object, more or less. And so the hardest thing to do is to come out and be human. And as I'm networking and building, I know the best thing to do to build relationships is to go out and be curious and learn and help other people, right? It's not me going and standing and talking about how cool I am and telling everybody about all my stories. There's a time and a place for that. But if I'm going out and I'm doing a member minute, or I'm just going and dominating every networking group and just talking and talking and talking, and I'm not doing any listening or asking questions, I'm really losing out on how I'm truly building value in relationships. And so that's me. And so I started creating content, and I was at home making the video by myself. I didn't love doing that. I start making content because I'm having conversations in the coffee shops with other business owners that I'm picking their brain, and they're telling me these amazing things. And I'm like, oh my God, this is killer content. And so it spins off this whole podcast. And so I'm doing this podcast. And then at one point I'm like, okay, that marketing worked to build my business. However, now I've got this whole podcast thing. You talk about distractions, you know, like, and I'm not making any money doing it, you know, other than it being my marketing and my branding. It's like all the rest of the time I'm doing it is like, it's just a passion project. Like, what am I doing with this? Right. And so this is way off. Like, what am I doing here? And it's really sitting down, and I struggled with this, and it took me far too long to really figure out what the heck I was doing. And honestly, it took hiring a coach and sitting down and like getting my butt kicked, and also getting some questions asked and understanding like, wow, this is what I have, all the pieces that I have around me and how it's tying together. And so you ask, like, how do I go help other people, right? And we talked about this studio and how that all came about. We talked about my coaching from the one-on-one, the group. We talked about the consulting. And then all of a sudden I have a podcast studio. Like, that's a distraction, right? Like, that's that's like way out here. Where does it all tie in? However, what I learned, and even my core concept of why I started the podcast, I'm sitting down with these amazing people that I see as amazing. I see that they did something that I want to do. They started a business. They became successful. Do you know that all of us beat ourselves up? All of us have imposter syndrome. Every single. I haven't met a person like that unless, you know, I haven't met many people that are actually doing real awesome things that are really inflated in themselves, that like really believe that they're the most amazing thing in the world. Like, most of the time, people will tell me a story and I'm like, oh my God, dude, you need to share that story. And they're like, oh, I could never share that story. Like, oh, no, that's too vulnerable, right? No, that's the one. That's the one that you need to share, right? And so what I started to realize that there's power in that content. And to come back to your question and how you make the impact, right? I had a person that reached out to me, wanted to be on my podcast. They wanted to create content. And he was a mechanic that worked his way up and owned a business. became really successful in his business, owns a couple of locations, has been doing this for 30 years. And he was like, I want to impart my knowledge on other people, like other guys that started their shops because they're great mechanics and they suck. They're shitty business owners because they didn't know they had to do all these things. It's not just about fixing cars anymore, right? And it's not just about painting houses anymore. There's all these other things you have to do. And he's like, can I come on your podcast and you make some content for me? Which is how I started monetizing the podcast, because all these people have these amazing stories and then they're struggling to make content. How do I get my content out there? Well, boom, come on my podcast. We'll get the best out of you. I'm gonna show everybody, like, we're gonna have an amazing, authentic conversation, and then we can cut these clips. You can put them out there, and it builds that know, like, trust. Well, we did that with him, and it's the same thing you're in. It's like helping other people. It took off. Content that was specifically made for people that own shops in how to sell better, how to take care of your better care of your customers, how to differentiate a profit and loss or do a profit and loss statement, how to budget, how to balance your books, like all the different things, and how to run a successful repair shop business. And we started doing content on that, and it just went crazy. And right now he has over 90,000 followers across social media. We started from zero. 90,000 followers across social media. We get millions of views every single month. He has 6 clients across the country that that own shops that he's consulting. And in the last 2 days, we've gotten 3 messages of people asking if he can consult them.
Wow.
He didn't say, hey, I'm a consultant. It just happened.
So it's kind of like that Mr. Beast video 10 years before, sending out like, I just want 1 million subscribers. 10 years from when he launched that podcast, he might have Mr. Beast levels of
Mr. Beast level. And now what's really exciting in the project that I'm working on right now and we're about to finish is we're doing online trainings. And so we're taking it, breaking it down. We've built out materials, and so we have these online trainings that we're building out, because now we can put these online trainings out. We do the work one time and people will just buy the trainings, and we already have people lined up ready to buy it. So you just put it out there, and now we're making money while we're sleeping.
And how did he know that it was time to transition from being all in on the automotive side and the repair shop side to be like, oh, well, this podcast thing or whatever thing you may be thinking of? How do you know when that time, like I said, new book, time to read the new book?
Yep. For him, he was bored, and he didn't really know. Like, he knew he wanted to like help people and get some knowledge out there, but he signed up to do 3 podcasts with me, and I was going to create content out of it. And then it turned into his own podcast. And then from that podcast, all of a sudden we started getting monetization from TikTok. They started paying us to make content. And then Facebook started paying us to make content. And then just recently YouTube started paying us to make content. But somewhere along that way, back in last July, we got our first client that reached out and said, hey, I've loved your videos. I'm a shop guy doing this all by myself. I've never owned a business before. Do you do consulting? And so Kevin came in and was like, do I do consulting? What does this look like? And, how do I put this together? And so then we sat down and we put it all together, and I went out with him and we did this first client together, and we did a 2-day repair shop reckoning with him. And then from there, we signed the client that he still works with us right now. And his life has changed, like completely changed with what we've been able to do for him, which is awesome. And has led to other clients reaching out. It's just the content. It's just how we position the content. He became a guru without saying I'm a guru.
So he knew that it was time to start a new book because he was bored. The business was doing good without him, and it was time for the new thing.
Yep.
I think something that even I'm, a victim, but I'm the person doing it, right? So
yeah.
I'm also the perpetrator. But things aren't completely settled, and it's like, okay, well, I'm bored, and then it's time for the next thing. And I've noticed with myself, it seems like it's around that time that it gets super duper duper hard to go to that next level. That's when it's like, oh, well, I could do another thing. Cause I don't know if everybody's like this, but I have tons of passion projects. I love, even like when you're talking about the AA thing, I've always wanted to impact families going through family member struggling with addiction or losing a sibling or something of that nature, because that's one of my traumas, right?
Yeah.
So I want to do that, and I have all these things I want to do, but I see like, hey, I need to have a sustainable, like whatever I'm doing needs to be sustainable before starting that other book. So he knew, because he had it there, it was ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he just moved into his new $1 million house. He
No big deal.
bought a Cybertruck. 'Cause one day he texted me and was like, "I think I'm gonna buy a Cybertruck." I was like, "Are you really?" And he was like, and then the next thing I knew, I got a picture with his like order complete. Like he's just that guy, and he's built up that success, and he's very clear on who he is, which is awesome because this is the other thing. We've had major brands, QuickBooks, just literally reached out to him. Was it 2 weeks ago? Like found him from social media, called him up and was like, "Hey, we'd love to sponsor you. We'd love to, what does that look like?" And he was like, "I'll tell you one fucking thing. If like I'm not ever gonna take any money and you're gonna tell me who I am. Like this is who I am. This is what I'm gonna say. You're never gonna dictate and own me because and if that's what you think, you were gonna try to water me down and tell me I can't do this or say this." He was like, "Fuck you guys." And they're like, "Okay, let us talk. Let's consult on the marketing team." But man, how powerful is that? And we did a whole episode on freedom, on having the freedom when you build a successful business and you do the right things, that you're not beholden to anybody's money, and you don't have to wear anybody else's brand on yourself. You don't have to be owned by anybody else. If you want to represent something, great, but they have to know that's on your terms.
That's deep.
It's deep, man, and I'm learning a lot from him. It's amazing.
And then it's crazy how much goes into other people's 10-year goal from your 10-year goal.
Yeah.
The impact that you've made, even in my life, from setting out on your journey just to make more content, it led to even having this building that we're here having a conversation. That's how we actually connected. Was you're like, "Hey, come on my podcast." So when you take and actually strive towards your 10-year goal, you don't even know how much impact along the way that has too. So that kind of answers my question a little bit.
That was
hitting that goal.
That was when I realized, when I had that realization, it was when I realized what I was put on this earth to do. And it's why I started a coaching and consulting business, even though I was like, am I an imposter? Am I a fake guru? I had this guy, and it happened a lot, but this one particular guy, it was like the realization of why I was put on this earth. And I don't know if I've told you this story before, but I hired this guy, and he was 20 years old at the time. His name's Josh, and he was at the time this on again, off again girlfriend. And a few months after I hired him, he found out she was pregnant. And he did what all 20-year-old guys do when you find out your girlfriend is pregnant. He married her. On again, off again girlfriend. They got married. And he wanted to do the right thing and have the family and all that kind of stuff. But he's 20 years old. He hasn't had any success in sales. I loved him because I could kick this guy's ass and he'd come back for more. Like he would take anything that I said to him and then he'd always come to me, and he was always open and communicative with me, and we'd always sit down and we'd have these conversations, and we'd make little progress, but he was always mediocre at best. Sometimes he'd be below mediocre. And even though knew he needed to be serious, he goofed around, and he was an immature 20-year-old. He would talk about fantasy football. He'd call up other stores, other locations we'd have, and try to make trades with people in our fantasy football league. And there was a point where I was interviewing two people to take over the leadership of this location that he was in. And in both of their game plans that they presented separately, they both said one of the first things they'd do is fire Josh because he's a waste of space and he's distracting everybody and he's not consistent and all these kind of things. And Josh is constantly coming to me like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna be a cop. I think I'm gonna go back to school. I think I'm gonna join the military. I think I'm gonna go sell cars." I'm like, "Bro, you can't sell phones. How are you gonna go sell cars? What the fuck are you talking about? Whatever." So this guy, one night we have this company meeting, and it's doing all the things I love to do. I got to stand up in front of the company and do motivational speaking for this whole entire organization. So I did this speech, and I loved it, man. Those were the things and the pieces that I was able to take and build my business, of the things that I love to do. And so I did this speech, and he came up and he was so motivated afterward. And he came up to me and he was like, she wanted to show me his tattoo that he had. He thought that it really resonated with the message. He was all excited. He just got this tattoo today, and he pulls up his sleeve, and his tattoo said, "Don't tell your kids how to live a life of greatness, but instead show them the way. Lead by example," essentially, right? And I was like, "Dude, Josh, that's awesome, man. What'd you do?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What'd you do today?" "To lead the way. To show your kid how to live a great life. What'd you do?" And he just looked at me, and I was like, "Dude, you got to go home. And you got to look Grace in the eye. And he may not understand, but you know what you did today. I saw what you did today. I know you didn't do anything to live a life of greatness. That's for damn sure." And this big burly guy with a beard and tattoos all over just started crying in front of me, started bawling. And we had a great, very deep conversation, and we I said, don't be like no regrets on your neck, right? Don't be the guy that has no regrets and you're just being this poser and you think you're so cool because you got this tattoo, but then you're not living that way.
Not even one letter.
Man, when I know phone calls suck, I know sales calls suck, I know you don't want to do them, I know it's hard, but man, when it's hard and you don't want to do it, fucking roll up your sleeve and look at your tattoo and be like, I gotta show my kid how to live a life of greatness. I gotta go do the hard things. I gotta do the things that I don't want to do so that I can give my son a life that I never had. So 3 years later goes by, and this guy took it. And he just 1 month after he just kept with my commitment and kept with the commitment and kept with the commitment. He kept every month was better than the next until he became the top salesperson in the company. Until he became the top salesperson in our franchise in the whole entire nation. Number one sales guy in the whole entire nation. This guy was like, it was awesome. He'd come report Josh number one in the whole entire country. So he calls me up 3 years later. I get this phone call on a Saturday morning, and usually Josh is calling me on a Saturday to let me know about the sales he's slaying, like the deals he's got coming in, the day he's got lined up, right? And so I'm like, all right, Josh, what's going on, man? What you got going on? He was like, hey, Jay. He was like, yesterday I bought my first house. Like, yeah, brother, I saw that, man. I'm so proud of you. He was like, I'm sitting here thinking about like, how did I get here? I'm 23 years old. I just bought a house for my family that's bigger than any house that I ever lived in growing up. And I'm like, how did I get here? And it's like, I came to the conclusion, if it wasn't for you believing in me, standing here, kicking my ass, telling me the things that I didn't want to hear, but I needed to hear, I wouldn't be here right now. And so I wanted to call you and let you know it's all because of you. And I can't tell that story today without breaking my emotion. So I was I'm not a very quiet person. I literally was like, Josh, man, I'm usually not at a loss for words, but I want to let you know I heard you. And I appreciate you for giving me a call. And I got off the phone and I sat on my couch and I cried for 45 minutes because like when you talk about like, what if I didn't do this thing? What if I made this decision? What if I would have took this job over here? What if I wouldn't have lived into who I'm supposed to be? What if I would have been scared to tell him what he needed to hear? What if all those things happen, right? What happens with Josh? I don't know. Maybe somebody else comes along and motivates him, but what's the chances? It's not a hero complex for me. But when you think about the things that happen, the people that come into your life, what if they didn't?
You gave me goosebumps. There's nothing better than that feeling that you got from empowering the empowerers.
Empowering the empowerers.
And that's how this whole conversation started. That's what Jason is, guys. It's invigorating to even be around. It's invigorating to be able to have a conversation with you because you could see and feel how much you care about each and every interaction that you have. Even when I met you online, like before I even like saw you, you saw us on social and you're like hollering out the window like, "What's up, B-Dog?" And it just gives me that energy that empowers me. Even today, I started today off like, because my son like got into my head and he's like, making me feel like shit. And then I come in here and you're like talking about the tattoo and then talking about the empowerment that you gave him. You gave that to me today too. It's like, I'm going to go fucking crush it.
Let's go.
And how awesome is it to see somebody who's mediocre and like slacking off going into overdrive mode just from a couple words. And it's about timing too. You were sharpening your skills with speaking. So you went and had that motivational speech and it empowered him to want to tell you about the tattoo. I believe it's a God wink, right?
It's absolutely.
And
yep.
And he comes up, shows you the tattoo. He's feeling that motivation. He's all jittery. He's like, oh, this is going to give me bonus points. And then realistically, you just kick down his whole brick wall he spent his entire life building. And it's humbling. It's humbling to have that brick wall taken down. And it's hard to be the person telling that person. And it's also hard being the receiver. So it's great that he was actually able to receive it, because I don't know about you, but I've sent out advice similar and it not be taken the right way.
5,000%.
And instead of like crying tears of happiness, it's more like you're almost crying because you feel like a dickhead trying to tell somebody.
Well, and I don't know how much time we have, and I don't want to get into too many more stories, but yeah, what you find out is that there are the people that Josh, he received it right away. I've had some people that the truth will set you free, but first they'll piss you off. They leave pissed off. You can tell they're visibly upset. I had one guy that I'm like, I even contemplated calling him up and apologizing him because I called him a straight up pussy. And I was like, you gotta stop being a pussy, right? And then next week I saw him and he was like, you changed my life.
That reminds me of a phone call I had with a friend. Like I said, I was in a really horrible relationship for a long time, and I would call him bitching about it over and over and over again. I can't believe she did this, 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 this. He goes, Brandon, I don't have time for this shit, and neither do you, and hung up. And that changed my entire life. Thank you, Al. Thank you so much. If you're watching this, thank you so much. I know we don't talk a lot, but you still impacted my life so much. And I was that guy that, oh yeah, question mark. Yeah, I don't know how to be confident with anything. And now that I have my wife now, it's so empowering. But my friend doing that to me, I did that to my friend. The exact same thing. It was like 4 years later, 3 years later, but he's doing the same thing to me about a very similar situation. I'm like, dude, I don't have time for this, and neither do you. Click. He still calls me and is like, man, you changed my life. And that's the stuff that's empowering.
Yep.
And that's the impact that I want to make. That's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we're taking and painting the world. I mean, we're not Sherwin-Williams, right? We're not trying to paint the world. However, we want to paint the world that wants us to paint it. And that impact from that is great. The impact from all this stuff, it's all little puzzle pieces. So you gave me what I needed. I hope that you guys got something that you needed from this too, because I see more of the puzzle now. There's a lot more to go. I feel like the puzzle's never ending. And when it is, it's kind of like somebody actually just came in and like threw your puzzle off the table. And so wholeheartedly, just thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on today. Thank you for telling us your stories. You've got so much more knowledge than I could ever even imagine. I don't think there's enough time in the metaverse, in the universe.
I do have like 260 podcast episodes.
Yeah,
so yeah.
go check it out. It's Coffee and Grit. And then Jason also has his own coffee brand. Oh my gosh, me and my wife have been cranking out them. It's like macadamia nut, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude, the espresso with that, so minty good. And yeah,
my wife puts the espresso in it. And she loves it,
dude. The best stuff ever. So with that being said, we just finished rolling out the second coat. Got to clean up our drop cloths. Got to go ahead and clean up the paint, clean out the brushes, and click that subscribe button, comment, follow Jason, check out his stuff, and just thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week on 2 Coats Deep.